Sometimes we need to hear them again, and it amazes me that every time we hear those old stories, there is a new meaning in it for us today. So my message today is on the topic of pilgrimage, which, as you know, I have been doing some traveling lately, which has been wonderful to be able to do. And it brought back memories of many years ago when I was a college student, when I had the opportunity to study abroad for a year. First by living with a host family in Paris, and then by studying at the University of Geneva in Switzerland. Now for me, at this time, this experience was checking a major item off of my bucket list. I just had this, all my life, had this wonderful romantic idea about what it would be like to visit or to live in Europe. In my mind, I had built up a fantastical image of what life there was like, mostly from reading Jane Austen and Charlotte Bronte, and watching musicals like Les Miserables and The Sound of Music. So of course I felt that everything in Europe would be just like that. And it would be certainly much more exciting than my humdrum life in the rural New Hampshire community where I grew up. I imagined leaving my old life behind forever and enjoying intellectual discussions over afternoon tea or at a Parisian cafe. I imagined that I would meet all kinds of dashing and romantic characters there who would not be nearly as boring as the ordinary people that I was used to. Oh, to be young, right? So as you can imagine, this opportunity to live and study abroad was a dream come true for me. And it really did change my life, but not in just exactly the way that I thought it would. And it's true that the places in Europe that I visited were every bit as wonderful as I'd imagined. The flaky croissants, the stunning ancient monuments, the unique and different people, the fun challenge of communicating in a new language did not disappoint. The places themselves were not the letdown. The letdown was me. It was the discovery that I was not at all the person I'd always believed myself to be. I was not at all sophisticated or cultured or even as smart as I thought I was. I was totally confused by the metro system. I was terrified by the volume of traffic and the lack of personal space on the streets in Paris. And because I had no sense of direction, and because GPS as such did not exist yet, I truly spent the entire first 2 days in Paris wandering around lost. I mean, I was okay with that because it was Paris, but it was not really what I had expected to be doing. And then there was the day of our group excursion for a brief hike in the Pyrenees Mountains, that beautiful mountain range along the southern border of France. What do you think I chose for footwear on this excursion? Hiking boots? One would think so. Sneakers? Nope, not even that. For this adventure, I chose to wear a pair of penny loafers. Why? I honestly don't remember. But I think I was envisioning a sunny, beautiful day twirling around in the mountains like Maria von Trapp. Again, the reality was very different. In fact, it even started snowing during our hike. Now, on the off chance that any of you might be considering a hike in the Pyrenees wearing penny loafers, I'm here to tell you it is a really bad idea, in case you didn't know that already. So as magical and amazing as Europe was, I discovered a side of myself that I did not like. A self that was far clunkier, more socially awkward, and yes, far less smart than I had always considered myself to be. And this whole experience revealed a fundamental truth which stuck with me over the years. The real value in any kind of journey is not what we learn about others, but what we learn about ourselves. And I believe this is exactly the reason why God so often sends people of the Bible on long journeys. Long journeys in which they encounter foreign lands and unfamiliar people. Journeys in which they leave everything behind, including their own familiar selves as they've always known them, and in which they never know what to expect, but must trust God entirely at every exciting and nerve-wracking step. The biblical journeys that we are most familiar with are, of course, in the Old Testament. We know that the first thing God did when calling Abraham to blaze the trail for the chosen people of Israel was sending him on a journey. God commanded Abraham and Sarah, whose names at the time were Abram and Sarai, to leave their homes and families behind completely. As it says in Genesis 12, verse 1, the Lord had said to Abram, "Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you." And so Abram and Sarai undertook a long journey. Long not solely because of the miles they covered, but because of the great changes that happened within them along the way. They were challenged by the journey, challenged and refined to more closely resemble the people that God designed them to be. And to reflect that process, God even changed their names, as it says in Genesis chapter 17, starting in verse 3. Abram fell face down, and God said to him, "As for me, this is my covenant with you. You will be the father of many nations. No longer will you be called Abram. Your name will be Abraham, for I have made you a father of many nations." God also said to Abraham, "As for Sarai, your wife, you are no longer to call her Sarai. Her name will be Sarah. I will bless her and will surely give you a son by her. I will bless her so that she will be the mother of nations. Kings of peoples will come from her." God sent Abraham on a long journey, a long pilgrimage, so that he could learn to trust God more fully and follow him more sincerely, changing him into a different person, preparing him to be the great father of many nations that we remember today. Another important Old Testament journey was, of course, the great exodus of the people of Israel as they left Egypt under Moses' leadership. This journey was extended into a 40-year exile because the people of Israel were disobedient and rebellious. This, in spite of the fact that God revealed his miraculous love and provision for them over and over, parting the Red Sea for them, raining down bread from heaven when they were hungry, bringing water from a rock to assuage their thirst. Even with all these signs and wonders, the people of Israel still were not able to fully put their trust in God. It was only after those 40 years away from everything they had known, exiled from their true selves and alone with God, that they had enough faith to advance and to at last claim their long-awaited promised land. But I think the best journey story in the Bible is to be found in the story of the disciples on the road to Emmaus that Jim read just a little while ago. I think this is probably within my top 10 favorite Bible stories because it's just so real. How often has it happened that we're just going along on our own personal journey, just thinking about getting from point A to point B without even perceiving that Jesus is journeying alongside us, working miracles within our hearts, even though we're unaware. Whenever I read this story, it always strikes me as odd that the disciples don't recognize him. How could they not? But of course, in their minds, Jesus was dead. Because they believed he had died, they were not open to what was happening right there in front of them. They engage in this deep theological discussion with this supposed stranger, not realizing that the scripture and prophecies they are discussing are right there in living, breathing form. And then in the ordinary act of sharing a meal together, using language in this story similar to what we read about the communion meal in the early church, it's there suddenly in the breaking of the bread that they see him. They know who he is. And their simple journey has abruptly become an odyssey of self-discovery. They understand deep truths about themselves, about God, and about the world. And after this journey, they will never be the same again. What journey, what pilgrimage has God called you to undertake in your life today? It may not be Europe or Emmaus or even just the next town over. But God does call each and every one of us at some point to leave behind what's familiar, to leave our old selves behind, put our faith in God fully, and open our eyes and hearts to the stunning miracles he has prepared for us. As a church, as the chosen people of God in our world today, he is still calling us on a journey. He calls us to leave the comfort, the routines, even some of the traditions of our old faith behind, to reach the world with a message that is fresh and new. It's easy for us to think of our Christian faith as something comfortable, like our favorite recliner, because it has been around so long that we are at ease with it. To us, it is home. Yet even though the Christian faith has been around for centuries, it is neither old nor stale. It is constantly fresh and new. It can bring new inspiration every single day for each of us. Inspiration which we are called to convey to others. Talking about journeys, one place which I came to love during my travels years ago was this beautiful old church, which was right around the corner from where my host family lived in Paris. It's called Saint-Sulpice. And it's not a famous cathedral like Notre Dame, but it became very special to me Being away from my church family, I felt slightly adrift when it came to my faith, and I loved having this peaceful and quiet church to just go and pray for a while when I needed to reconnect with the Lord. And on my most recent travels, when I went to Paris with my children, I took them to see Sense of Peace so they could see what it was like. And we took a few pictures of the inside. This is what it looks like as you're going in, and there are all these little chapels and shrines along the side with gorgeous stained windows and statues depicting the lives of various saints. And then, the ceilings all have these gorgeous paintings and designs on them. And there was a priest administering Mass while we were there, so to kind of stand on the sidelines of that and be a part of it from afar was really beautiful. Now, the inside of this church was just as stunning as I remember it, and I could tell that my children were impressed with it too. Yet despite the fact that Paris has spectacular churches like this one in almost every neighborhood, the fire of authentic Christian belief has been fading in France for a long time. Statistically, about 44% of French people now identify as having no religion at all, as compared to only about 10% back in the early 80s. By the time I visited France in 1997, churches like this one already felt more like museums than actual worship spaces. They felt like relics of a faith from the past. How can we prevent our beautiful churches here in New Hampshire from becoming beautiful museums like this one? I believe we do that by embracing not just the comfort and the tradition, but also the challenge of the journey. By recognizing that the life of faith is not always, in fact, almost never, what we expect it to be. It teaches us about ourselves, about God, and about the world. It reveals truths that are uncomfortable, like Abraham or the Emmaus disciples, or silly young people who choose the wrong footwear on hiking trips. We may need to leave the comforts of our spiritual home in the past and put our trust fully in God for the uncomfortable and unfamiliar seasons of life. Because our faith is not a museum. Like travel, like any pilgrimage, it is unpredictable. It is messy. It is sometimes even a bit terrifying. But if we fully embrace it as the journey it was meant to be, we will find that it offers fresh inspiration each and every day as nothing else can. And so I invite you today to join me in embracing God's journey, because I can't wait to find out what he has in store for you and me. Let us join now to say the